somebody from Doge was very badly hurt last night. You saw that. A young man who was beat up by a bunch of thugs in DC. And either they're going to straighten their act out in the terms of government and in terms of protection, or we're going to have to federalize and run it the way it's supposed to be run.
President Donald Trump has repeatedly threatened to federalize Washington, D.C., especially after a 19-year-old Doge staffer by the name of Edward Kornstein was allegedly the victim of a brutal and violent attack. Now, if that name doesn't really sound familiar to you, that's okay. You might recognize him by his now infamous alias, Big Balls. But what happened to him is serious, so let's get into the details. Now, Elon Musk, the former head of Doge, said in an X post a few days ago, a gang of about a dozen young men tried to assault a woman in her car at night in DC. A Doge team member saw what was happening, ran to defend her, and was severely beaten to the point of concussion, but he saved her. Now, here's another account of the incident. According to a DC police report, about 10 juveniles approached Kornstein and one other person who were standing next to their vehicle, then demanded the vehicle and assaulted one of the victims. So it looks like, based on what the police report says, it was some sort of carjacking or attempted carjacking. At that point, for her safety, Kornstein pushed his significant other into the vehicle and turned to deal with the suspects. Officers happened to be on patrol nearby, and luckily they were able to see what was happening. So the officers immediately exited their vehicle and the juveniles began fleeing on foot. So Trump also posted a picture of the Doge staffer and the condition he was in. So he was bloodied. I want to give you that warning before we show you the image. Oh, we're not even really showing you the image. Okay, well, you can find it online. YouTube likes to censor things that they shouldn't censor because I guess they think that everyone is a child who can't handle seeing a little bit of blood. Anyway, so as you can see, we had to completely blur out the image, but again, available online. Now, two 15-year-olds, one boy and one girl, have been arrested for carjacking in connection to the case. And Trump wrote in a post, Washington, D.C. must be safe, clean, and beautiful for all Americans, and importantly, for the world to see. If D.C. doesn't get its act together and quickly, we will have no choice but to take federal control of the city and run the city how it should be run and put criminals on notice that they're not going to get away with it anymore. Now look, Trump does actually have some options here if he does want to act. Like for instance, he could deploy federal law enforcement officers or the National Guard. I mean, he did it to LA, even though LA didn't want it. But fully revoking DC's ability to govern itself would require congressional legislation. He would also invoke the Home Rule Act, which allows the president to temporarily take control of DC's police force, but only in certain scenarios. Trump can order the mayor to provide the federal government with DC police services in special conditions of an emergency, as the president may deem necessary and appropriate. But carjackings continue to be a problem in DC. I'm gonna get to the details on that in just a minute. I don't think Trump really has any plan to make that any better, but I'll give you the details and stats in just a moment. Cenk, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so first of all, look, of course, I don't agree with Doge. I don't agree that we should have let Big Balls have access to our information, etc. But on this one, attaboy. Okay, what a man is supposed to do is get the woman out of harm's way. Okay, if you don't like that and you think I'm too old school, that's fine.
I like it.
Okay, so but good job on protecting her, and obviously at great personal risk to himself, and is, you could partly tell from that picture he's bloodied pretty badly. And so I'm glad that they took it super seriously. I'm glad the cops were there. I'm glad that they then arrested at least a couple of the people doing this. We're gonna tell you about crime stats and how they went up and now they're going down a little bit. But to me, home rule, like Donald Trump trying to take over Washington, doesn't make any sense, right? Tackling the crime problem makes sense, right? But is the federal government gonna run it any better? Or is there now all of a sudden going to be new rules about how you can't criticize Israel, otherwise you'll be arrested and watched? I don't know, but the federal government hasn't done a great job in any of that stuff. let them do what they're doing. They're actually are, at least in the last year, bringing the crime down a little bit. But let's give you the whole context.
Yes. So look, there was a huge crime spike in 2023, but Cenk is right. The numbers are trending downward, which is good news. Okay. So for instance, in 2023, DC recorded the highest spike in crime in the country. Overall, in that year, there was a 39% increase in crime compared to 2022. In 2023, there were, for instance, 274 homicides in DC, the highest number since the 90s, 1998. Homicides were down though, 31% in 2024. So hopefully they continue to trend downward. Robberies were also very high in 2023. There were 3,460 robberies that year, and that was up 67% from 2022. The good news is now the numbers are starting to trend downward. In 2024, robberies went down 39% to about 2,100 cases. But guys, the car thefts are the real problem in DC, and I don't know what's causing it. I don't know how to explain it. It typically involves teenagers. And so there's a real problem here. So motor vehicle theft shot up 82% in 2023 to about 6,800 cases from about 3,800 cases the year before in 2022. In 2024, motor vehicle theft went down 24% to about 5,100 cases. Obviously, that's still insanely high. Okay, so again, in 2022, you have 3,800, and last year it's 5,100. Sure, it trended a little bit downward compared to 2023, but it's still astronomically high for that area. Crime numbers have continued to fall this year in every category except one, and that's motor vehicle theft.
Yeah, so like different cities have different problems, partly because of different gangs, different organizations, but also different laws and rules and policing, right? So is it true that crime went up between 2019 and 2023? Indisputably true, right? Although I just saw today, some on the left are still denying it.
Okay, whatever.
It's
I
exhausting.
mean, we don't have to
okay,
address
hold on. I know I do have to address it because people have to deal in reality. Okay, so now, by the way, now the right wing and Trump and Jeanine Pirro are like, no, crime is not going down. We have to take over Washington. No, but crime is going down now. No, so like for political reasons, everybody's gonna make up numbers and live in fantasy land.
It's very true.
You know, half the country says there was no crime in 4 years, in that 4 years. Now the other half of the country is saying crime is going up when it's going down. It's like it's hopeless. There's tribalism blinds everyone.
It does, yep.
So now, in terms of what they should do, guys, part of the reason, like, there's different things that are causing these local problems, right? So in this case, it's very likely that the organized crime is taking advantage of the fact that kids under 18 get lower penalties. And so they're likely using teenagers because they'll have reduced sentences and they'll be out of jail soon, right? Now that's a super difficult issue to tackle because you don't want to send 14-year-olds to prison for the rest of their lives or for 20 years, etc. But then when you set it up this way, then they recruit young kids and teach them how to do vicious crimes, right? So we're in a lose-lose situation there that's very difficult to solve. But we all have to tackle this stuff. And the best way to tackle it, whether it's all of these different kinds of thefts and crimes, etc., is to be rational, look at facts, see where it came from, and do our best to address it. But if you go to tribalism and you just are in fantasy land in either direction, we're never going to solve it. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets its wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.